Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I know that I've been gone for a little bit, but I'm back to explain on-campus housing to you all. This video is pretty specific to Tufts University because I'm going to be talking about what I usually say as a Tufts tour guide and also my own experiences with housing here. But a lot of the information can be applied to other colleges as well. So if you're either starting at Tufts in the near future, you're just trying to figure out housing for next year, or you just go to another school and you're just trying to get a head start on figuring all of this out, just keep watching. I've got some notes. We're just going to go through some of the big questions and just generally how it works. And yeah, let's just get into it. Also, I am just hiding in a practice room in the music building here at Tufts because it's not super quiet in my suite or where I live. So if you hear any other instruments and everything, that's why. So we're going to start off by talking about freshman housing and just generally how that works. So once you get accepted to Tufts and you decide that you're going here, that's super exciting. You actually get invited to fill out a survey, and that is how you pick your roommate. So I know that in a lot of colleges you're able to actually find your roommates through Facebook groups, or if you know someone going into the school, you can pick your own roommate. If you can, I definitely recommend picking someone new and not someone that you already know from high school and everything. It's just a nice way to meet someone and get out of your comfort zone a little bit. But at Tufts, that's just not even an option because you cannot pick your roommate. But you do fill out this pretty decent survey. It has a ton of questions, and some of them, it asks 15 questions about your music taste. I finally found out the reason. It's actually because a Tufts student did research and said that if two people have very similar music tastes, they're probably going to have similar living preferences. Kind of weird, but I think it works out pretty well for most people. So that survey basically determines your roommate, and it asks a lot of questions on when you go to bed and when you like to do homework and if you like to stay in the room for most of the time or go to the library and just things like that generally. So it does a pretty decent job at covering a lot of bases and helping you pick out a roommate. So then you find out who your roommate is, I think in June, and then you guys can find each other on Facebook or Instagram and just start talking about stuff. I think that the most important thing about housing and living with someone that you don't know is communication, which if you're anything like me, it's super hard to talk to people who you don't know about serious things. Okay, what's the deal? Are you going to be in the room all the time during the day? Are you going to be bringing people in a lot? Things like that. But it's super important. Make sure that you set boundaries, have a lot of communication so you can tell the other person if you're uncomfortable with something or if something's just bothering you a lot. That's just super important. So when you move into your room and you're meeting your roommate and everything, what's really nice is you guys can also get some stuff to share. So my roommates and I, we shared a fridge, a microwave, a Brita filter and things like that were just it's nice to just split some costs and it's not everyone needs their own. So that's super good as well. And you just, so you're sharing a room with this new person now, but for freshmen, how housing works is that there's a ton of different dorms. They're mostly all doubles and triples, and there's a couple singles if you're lucky, but also then you don't meet, a roommate right away. So there's pros and cons to having a single and everything like that. I can't speak to that as much. I was actually in a forced triple because Tufts housing right now is they need to build a new dorm, basically. Tufts, please build a new dorm. But I did live in a forced triple. It worked out fine. One of my roommates from last year, I actually am living with this year, and we signed a lease for the next 2 years, and she's just one of my best friends here. So we're going to be living together all 4 years, which is kind of proof that the survey and everything does work for the most part. And that's how the housing worked. Most people that I know did have a good time with their roommates. If you don't have a good time and it's just absolutely there's no communication, it's just not working out, then you can request a room transfer. And so you can switch rooms. I think you can request that early in the semester, or you can request it for your second semester at Tufts. So that's if you are having a lot of issues and you're just nervous about that, that is an option. But just hopefully it works out with you and your roommates. And all of the dorms at Tufts are insanely nice now. They've all been renovated, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, which is crazy. I lived in one of the oldest dorms that was super honestly gross and awful, but it was renovated this past summer and it's just gorgeous now, super new, super modern, new furniture, new kitchens, new common spaces. It's amazing. And then all of the dorms have common spaces as well, which is really nice. Most of them have a common space on every floor, or one big common space on the main floor, and they're just nice. It's a really good way to meet people. I met one of my really good friends because he lived across from me, and then we would hang out in the common room early in the year. So it's just a fun place to do homework or meet people or just hang out. And then on your floor, you've also got an FYA, which is Tufts' version of a resident assistant. So if you go to a different school and you're thinking, what is an FYA? It's exactly the same as an RA. It's just a different name for some reason. But they're also there to, help you out, which is really nice. You can take advantage of that. Don't just leave them hanging all the time. I know that I have friends who are RAs, and they say that they try to, host events so that people can meet each other or just, get free food and, do fun things, and people tend to not go. But I will say that my FYA hosted, a big painting event, and, I got my friends who didn't even live in our dorm to, come, but we had a great time, and it's just, really fun free events that are on campus, and also you'll make the RA feel good because their whole job is to try and like help you out, and they're really there for you, especially as freshmen. So as long as you have like a pretty decent RA, like please go to their events because they're really trying to like make that a fun thing, and it's like a fun option for you to go to. But that's a really good resource to take advantage as well, especially at Tufts, because there are things like painting nights or movie nights or just like free dinner or things like that. So that's a really fun thing and like a good way to meet people as well. So that's basically freshman housing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about like sophomore housing. So at Tufts, how it works is that every sophomore gets a lottery number, and then if you want to live in a different kind of housing. So freshmen were mostly doubles and triples, a couple of singles. Sophomores have all those options, but there's also like suite style and apartment style dorms, which are really nice. I live in an apartment style dorm. So basically those suites and apartments are like 4 to 10 people, I think. You can make your own group, and it's just like all of your rooms are together, but you share usually like a common living space. I share a common kitchen and then like 2 bathrooms between all 10 of us. And honestly, it's really great. Like I really like living like that. I'm living with a bunch of friends, but I know people who are like with people that they're not super close to, but it's still nice because they're sharing it with just 10 people instead of a whole building of people that they share all their like common areas and stuff with. One thing at Tufts is that I'm not sure if it goes for all the dorms, but at least the one that I live in, which is called Latin Way Dorm, we have to clean our own bathrooms, our own common spaces, our own kitchen, everything like that. It's not a big deal. You just like split up chores and everything, but it's just something to like be aware of, that you know, because in the doubles and singles and everything, like all the common areas are cleaned by staff at Tufts, which they're amazing staff. Thank you so much. But they clean all of those common spaces for you, and if you're living in a suite or apartment, like I guess one of the cons is that you have to do that cleaning for yourself. So you get your lottery number, it's randomly selected, and then you can form groups. So if you're just trying to get a single, you're on your own, you know, but if you're trying to get a double, triple, or like a big group of people for a suite or apartment, you form groups of that size, and then you guys get to use the best number out of those, which I think is like the lowest number is the best number. I got really lucky. One of my friends had a super low number, which is why I live in the apartment in the building that I live in. It was like our top choice. But I know a lot of people who got a little bit higher numbers, but were still living in like really great places that they want to live in. Again, most of the sophomore dorms are pretty nice. Things change around a lot. I know that one of the freshman dorms from my class last year became a sophomore dorm this year because we're just a pretty big class and they wanted the biggest dorm to be for our grade. So like I mentioned, I live in Latin Way. It's a downhill dorm. It's close to a lot of things, which I personally like. So you can look at, like if you go to Tufts and you're looking for sophomore housing, you definitely like probably have a preference between uphill, downhill. But a lot of my friends and I were downhill people, so we decided that was where we wanted to live. But there are also like suite style apartment style dorms uphill, and there's like double, triple, traditional style dorms both uphill and downhill, and like near both of the dining halls and near like the campus center or like near the library and things like that. So just like look around, look at what housing options you have and which ones are for your year at that time, and then look at your lottery number and then figure out like, okay, if it's decently low, we think we can probably get like the building that I live in, Latin Way, that's pretty popular, so it usually gets full pretty fast. There's some really nice buildings that have great singles and doubles. I think like Stratton is one that like gets full pretty fast. So you just need to kind of like think about that and figure out where your lottery number is in the mix. But all sophomores are guaranteed housing, so like you're gonna have a place to live regardless. You just also have to remember to be flexible, because if you, let's say, were in a group of like 10 people, but then you didn't get the 10-person apartment, then you need to split into like groups of like 4 for a 4-person, or like doubles or triples and things like that. So make sure that you're like willing to be flexible and adapt to whatever fills up first. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about housing beyond sophomore year. So Tufts only has guaranteed housing for freshman and sophomore year. I know a lot of other colleges have guaranteed housing all 4 years. If you have that, I'm a little jealous, but it's okay. Housing still works out pretty well. I'm going to talk about the on-campus housing options, and like I don't know a lot about them because I haven't gone through that. If you are interested in off-campus housing, I'm going to be making a separate video about that very soon, and once it's out, I'll link that down below so you can go take a look. And that'll explain that, because I actually am living off-campus next year, so I've gone through that whole process about signing a lease and all of that fun stuff. So that's what I'm going to do next. But for on-campus housing, as beyond a sophomore, basically juniors and seniors, you can apply to get a lottery number, but this time it's not guaranteed to get one. And honestly, like it's randomized, so you don't know what you're going to get, so you have to be ready to like be flexible and figure out new plans. But I have a friend who got a really good lottery number, and so she's living in Coho, which is like one of the on-campus housing options for juniors and seniors. It's super nice. It's basically like a house, but it's just owned by Tufts, and so like they take care of a lot of like the big things that you would need to worry about if you're living off campus, which is like utilities and stuff like that. But that's a really good option. And then there's some other dorms as well. So Latin Way also has some dorms that are saved for juniors and seniors, and there's also like a separate building that's just for seniors, I believe, or upperclassmen. So there are some options on campus if you're still looking to live on campus your junior and senior year. The one thing I will say is that the fear is that a lot of off-campus places, or like at least the good ones that are pretty nearby and aren't too expensive, do get signed, like people sign leases for them pretty early on in the year, and then the issue is you don't get your lottery number, or you don't find out until you don't find out if you have a lottery number. I can't talk. You don't find out if you can't. I can't talk. You don't find out if you have a lottery number until usually December, or I think it even might be early January. So I think that some people do just decide to live off campus because they're worried that they won't get a lottery number. But from what I've heard, I don't think you should stress. I think a lot of people get super stressed, and like I was fully one of them. Like I signed my lease in October, I'm pretty sure, which was unnecessary. Like you can wait longer and find out if you're going to get on-campus housing first if you prefer to live on campus. I think that price-wise they don't end up being super different, but if it's, you know, convenience-wise, which you mean you don't have to worry about finding a subletter for like the summer, or if you're going abroad and things like that, then on-campus housing is a really good option as well. So make sure you just like look into that and don't get too stressed. If you're like looking for off-campus housing super early in the year, like it'll be okay. I know people who didn't have their housing set up until like May, and then they figured it out over the summer and it totally worked out and it's completely fine. But yeah, so on campus housing, there are some options for upperclassmen, and you just need to like look for them and make sure you try to get a lottery number and things like that. It's also super good to talk to upperclassmen. Obviously, I'm only a sophomore, so I haven't actually gone through this like whole process yet, and I'm not going through the on-campus process for junior and senior year, but a lot of people here have, so you can just talk to them and be like, how do you like your living situation, and like would you prefer to like keep living here for senior year if they're there for junior year, or like are they planning on moving off campus next year and things like that. But there's a lot of pros and cons to both, so just look at it and like talk to people who live on campus and off campus and figure out what you want. But yeah, off-campus housing is like an option, but on-campus housing also has a ton of really good pros to it. So that's all for on-campus housing options here at Tufts University. There's definitely like pros and cons to all of it. I mean, the big con is that Tufts genuinely just needs to build a new dorm, and they need to get on that faster because it's really important. They've been enrolling more and more people every year. There's just not enough places to live here. But there's also a lot of really great pros, like all of the on-campus housing, especially for freshmen right now, is amazing. Like recently renovated, absolutely gorgeous, great places to live. So if that's a factor in your decision, if you're like thinking about whether or not you should come to Tufts, or if it's just, you know, something that you're looking at for next year, just go and like check out the dorm that you're gonna look at. The place that I live this year, my friends and I actually like kind of snuck in and like tried to like peek through the window at the end of last year just to like try and see what it was gonna look like. But you should probably just talk to the people who live there in any of the kind of dorms or on-campus housing options that you are looking at living in, and they will definitely like just help you out. Like, people here are just super friendly, so genuinely just go and talk to them, and they'll probably just be like, yeah, no, come like take a peek at my dorm, or like tell me if you need help with the application or anything like that. So yeah, that's all I've got on campus housing. Hopefully this video was helpful. If you have any more questions, just comment them down below, or you can like DM me on Instagram. My Instagram is Ria_smiles. And if you just want to like DM me there, I'll answer questions as well. And yeah, hopefully this was helpful. I will see you guys soon with another video, and there will be an off-campus housing video coming out super soon. Okay, bye!